Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Budish. I'm the Executive Director of Transit Choices. The mission of our organization is to advocate for an equitable, efficient, and reliable multimodal public transit system in Baltimore and throughout the region. Each month, it is our pleasure to host these meetings, which bring to you relevant and important topics within the transportation arena. So, without further ado, I'd like to mention that we have a slight revised guest speaker lineup. We're going to start with Patrick Fleming. Patrick is the Chief of Staff with the Baltimore City Department of Transportation. His presentation today is titled Moving Baltimore Forward, Transportation Priorities for Progress. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah, now if I can get myself off mute properly.
Okay.
Not just
We
a
can
day full of technical.
we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. And I have like four screens, luckily, so uh hopefully there we go. Okay. So, and everybody can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having me today. I know that Director Macbeth had hoped to be here, but unfortunately, when the mayor calls and says you have to do something, that is what we do. So that is why she is unable to attend. But she wishes she could be here. So just starting the presentation, a brief background about myself. I've been with Baltimore City DOT for about 4 months now. This is my second tour of duty with BCDOT. I was last here about 9, 10 years ago. And then before that, I had spent about 12, 13 years with various entities within MDOT and its modal administrations. And then most recently, before coming here, I was working in the emergency management field. But getting started about Baltimore City DOT, it's one of the oldest cities with transit. It's the birthplace of the American Railroad. Had a very extensive streetcar system that was launched, and as people recognize throughout the city, there are still rail lines within roads all across the city. So oftentimes you will see them in various areas. We're currently in the midst of a renaissance for Baltimore City. We've been seeing population growth, investment by developers, and moving forward through the city. And then there's the incoming redevelopment of the Inner Harbor. We know that transportation is going to be an integral part of the renaissance of Baltimore and continuing to move forward. So as part of that, we are looking to maintain and improve the transportation infrastructure to produce a safe, reliable, efficient system for all transportation users. And just a brief description about our statistics is we have over 2,000 miles of roadways, 7 miles of interstate highways, almost 300 bridges and culverts, 450 miles of alleys, 72,000 streetlights. I have a hard time believing that it's that number. It seems kind of low personally. Over 1,300 signalized intersections and over $250,000 of signs, 250,000 signs in intersections. The opportunities that we have is we're looking to utilize our federal grants. From the federal government, we have approximately $150 million, and we're prioritizing ADA, not only with our federal money, but also with the influx that we've received over the last few years for highway user revenue from the state. And then we're looking to expand transit service connectivity with bike, beginning that last mile and first mile connectivity that we have across the city to overlay with MTA's service. And we also are looking to how we can increase and optimize our harbor connector and Charm City circulator. We're seeing an increase of use of the harbor connector in the last few months, specifically in connectivity between Harbor East, Harbor Point, and the Federal Hill neighborhood. an area. So that's been really exciting over the last few months. I mean, we're seeing like a 30-40% increase over last year. And so that's really exciting to see. And then we're getting ready to um, extend the Green Line, the Charm City Circulator Green Line, north up to North Avenue, past uh, Hopkins Hospital. And so those are some exciting changes that we have happening. Our pedestrian safety is one of our top priorities. So we're looking at increasing or deploying pedestrian hybrid beacons and rapid flashing beacons at approximately 20 locations across the city. At this time, installation is limited to grant funded efforts. And we're looking at the rapid flashing beacons have been used to support near schools to allow for student pedestrian safety. And then also the 20 sites were determined based off of crash data and pedestrian demand. We're looking at, as part of our improvements for ADA ramps across the city, folks may have noticed, but we're committed to spending about $12 million a year the next few years to increase ADA accessibility across the city. So that includes a combination of ramps and sidewalk repavements, and that is outside of the already dedicated opportunities that we have for resurfacing and sidewalk repair. So this is a pretty significant investment that the city is making in ADA accessibility across the city. And we're also looking at increasing the ability of audible crosswalks, so the pedestrian signs. And then this year, we're committed to repaving 111 miles for resurfacing, 700,000 square feet of sidewalk, and filling over 100,000 potholes, which we recognize that in Baltimore, the number of potholes that exist is just a limitless number, but we try. As far for traffic calming, we've replaced the speed hump request in 311 with the standard traffic calming request. This was done because, of course, everybody wants speed humps on their street, but in reality, speed humps may not be the best or the only traffic calming measure that exists for a street. And so we are looking to broaden it. And then also, as part of our conversations with the community, will be to have a conversation with the communities so that they can understand that while they have asked for a speed hump, that may not be the exact opportunity that's available for a myriad of reasons, but other options are available to try and address traffic. Honestly, it's usually just speeding. Um, so one project that we wanted to highlight was the Inner Harbor Intersection Improvement Project. So this is being done to enhance pedestrian safety, accessibility, and overall mobility along Pratt Street by upgrading key intersections. So high visibility continental style crosswalks will be installed for increased pedestrian safe visibility and safety. ADA compliant pedestrian ramps to ensure accessibility for all users. Countdown pedestrian signals to provide clear timing and guidance for safer crossing. Accessible pedestrian signals for visually impaired pedestrians, and bicycle and pedestrian wayfinding will be increased. This is also, as part of this, we're increasing the conduit connectivity in this area to allow for better signal connectivity and information. There will be temporary lane closures. This is ongoing along Pratt Street at Pratt and Light, Pratt and Calvert, and Pratt and President Street. Construction work will be done primarily overnight from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. to minimize disruptions. The number of lane closures will vary, and then it'll last for a few more months. We do take into account the work will not be happening on late games for the Orioles or Ravens, and then also as significant events occur. So like the Maryland Cycling Classic that's happening next weekend, not this coming week, but the following weekend, work will be stopped during those periods to allow for those events to not have conflicts. Recently, we relaunched the Harbormaster's office. And so folks may have seen the some recent media in the Baltimore Banner. And then if anybody is also a boater, there has been a lot of media coverage by some of the specific sailing or boating in media industry. And so we've been getting a lot of great press, which is great. So Mike McGady is our new harbor master. He's a native of Baltimore, has a deep personal and professional ties to the waterfront. Mike is an amazing person and just a font of information. He's really great. He's been a huge asset for us. And so not only does he oversee the daily operations of the Inner Harbor and the surrounding municipal piers, but is reinforcing his city's commitment for the revitalization, and he's helping coordinate a lot of management and work along the promenade and the waterfront that's there. So recently, I believe it was the early July, you started using DACWA to be able to allow reservations for information for slips and piers, which has been really great. And it's all online based and is cashless. So it's awesome. It's been seamless, but it's been really great reviews. And we have the Harbor Master's office has a pretty decent, a pretty nice lounge for boaters to be able to use when they're coming to visit and see Baltimore, which is really great. The one of the other big initiatives that we're working on across the city is our citywide signal retiming. This will allow us to update not only the traffic signals, but also pedestrian timing. We'll like to highlight that when these retimings occur, this is all unfortunately a point in time. And I know that one of the things that we're facing right now, especially as school is going back into session, we've been having some comments from schools and communities about signal timing being off during the pickup and drop off times. So we're working to address those as quickly as possible. You can learn more about this project at our Streets of Baltimore page, or pretty much any projects that the city is working on can be found on the Streets of Baltimore page. And so I will, with that, be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I've seen some things pop up in the chat, but I have not had a chance to look at them.
That's fine. Would you mind taking down
Yep.
the last slide? That would be great.
Yep.
So if you have a question, you may raise your hand or you may put your comment in the chat. Let me just make sure we're not missing anybody.
Will the work being done around the Inner Harbor include connecting disconnected bike lanes in the area? As part of the existing work that is being done about the Inner Harbor for pedestrian signal, that is not going to be looking at in looking at the bikeways. It's really at those three intersections. So we will be looking as part of the downtown Rise, the Baltimore Rise, and part of the Inner Harbor redevelopment. We will be looking at how we can connect the bike infrastructure to make it more seamless and cohesive. The speed limit signs on major residence streets need to be replaced with timeless. I will have that the comment about the speed limit signs. I'll have our folks look at that. We will get into that. The Klaus, this presentation, this is some of the topics that we were asked to talk about. So that's why if folks want more information about Complete Streets or the Greenway Network, we're happy to come back at another time and talk about those more in depth. Is 29th Street targeted for repaving? Will that include Complete Streets audits? I do not know off the top of my head if 29th Street is included on the repaving list, but I will follow up with folks, and if it and we can get that information back to everybody. I don't want to trying to get. So the signal retiming is to look at all operations uh, of the signals. So it's to balance the flow of traffic for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. And so it is making sure that we're able to give ample time for pedestrians to cross the streets appropriately and re-signal. And then similarly, if bicyclists are following the pedestrian signals, or if they're staying in the lane and then following the traffic signals that way. So it's designed to encompass all of those things, but it's also designed to, as people are moving across the blocks, that they'll able to continue to receive signals so they can continue on their path moving forward. Yes, the repaving list is available publicly. If you Google Baltimore Orange Cone List, that'll come up for the, you know, you can look up the current fiscal year, so for 2026, and then that'll pop up, and it's also available on the streets of Baltimore. I apologize, I cannot talk about the TSP at this point in time. I'm just not overly familiar with it. But again, we can have some folks come back and talk about that for you all. Patrick, I can't talk about the intimate knowledge of how the signal timing is happening. So we can again happy to follow up with questions or have our technical experts come back and talk about the more nuanced of how the signal timing is occurring. The Prosecutor Project affect bus stops and will MTA in terms of the community updates. Yes, we will be talking about we will coordinate with MTA for effects of bus stops. I don't know that, seeing how the project is currently underway, if there will be significant impacts to the bus stops. But if there are impacts to either circulator or MTA bus stops, that will be communicated out. Essentially controls. Again, I apologize. I can't talk. I'm not intimately familiar with the exact mechanics of our the signals, of if they can be controlled outside. So my current private paper project that is currently underway or recently completed, and why? That is a good question. I really do like the big jump that's occurring and the improvements that are happening on Druid Park Lake Drive, and what's going to be happening moving forward. I'm excited to see how the community wants that to be completed in their own minds. I really like the idea that this is a project that is being put into a neighborhood that has been consistently underserved and has been disconnected, whether intentionally or not, but that's just what happened over an extended period of time, from this large public park asset that they have right across the street. And looking forward to working with the community to be able to create art and infrastructure in that space and space making as that moves forward. So we are already underway to reach out to communities. We've ordered planters. We're working with them to understand how they want that area to be beautified and create that sense of placemaking and connectivity to the park and moving forward. I'm glad to see that you're happy with the concrete barriers. The big jump, I agree, and we're looking to personally, I'd like to see more. One of the things we're looking at is how we can work with the community and they can develop the art that they want to see on the Jersey barrier. So it's not just a beautiful stark white, nor does it get either unintentionally or intentionally graffitied. So we'd like to see, I mean, if the community decides to do graffiti art, I think that'd be interesting and cool. But that's going to be up to them. Are there plans to replace flex posts around the city with harder barriers to replace? There are some plans to, as part of investments. I think it just depends on the topography and the availability of the project. So even if it's not hard barriers, it's going to, like the big jump, but creating protected bike lanes, or then creating on corridors bus islands and bump outs where the uh, bicyclists will have an inside protected bike lane. Um, so we are thank you, Chris. We are looking to prioritize, all movement, and so it is not just vehicle movement, but it's looking at how we can prioritize or reallocate the flow of traffic on our system to provide equity for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and for all and for vehicles. And so, yep. So thank you for putting the orange cone list in the chat, Anna. Zach, thank you. It's good to be back. Yep. I it was a needed break. But we're glad to be back home. I never moved out of the city. I've been living in the city for over 16 years now, and the opportunity to have only a 15-minute commute was very enticing for me. After spending 6.5 years doing an hour plus commute, I was ready to be back in the city to be able to take the bus and bike, and it's a little too far to walk, but can do other modes of transportation again. The Frederick Douglass Tunnel project is going to have a big impact on traffic flow through Mulberry and Franklin. Yep. So we are working with Amtrak to address the outreach. So we are working with them to piggyback and spread information. So the impact, we're looking at this as kind of two things, is recognizing that Franklin and Mulberry, they are mostly transversed or oftentimes traversed by commuters heading in downtown and heading out from the suburbs. So we're looking at how we can communicate both to the communities themselves and then also to commuters who pass through that area. So we're working with not only is BCDOT through our community liaisons, but also with our partners at Amtrak, and they have a whole outreach team that are developing the specific information because this is the Amtrak project. It is not a DOT project. They are the ones that need the subject matter experts to provide information. So we are working with them and sharing their information and piggybacking, and then also having coordination with our other partners. So I was just on a call. What's today? Today's Thursday. So Tuesday, maybe it was yesterday, Tuesday. Time is a construct. I don't know what's happening. The with the on to coordinate talk about outreach, especially as the Mulberry closures went into effect over the weekend. And it was good to see that the representatives from the Ravens and Orioles organizations were there so that they can then spread information to people as part of their outreach for games and events that are occurring at those areas in the Maryland Stadium Authority. So we're trying to spread information far and wide. I know that our folks have been in contact with the community associations in the immediate area and attending meetings to provide specific information. And then there's also a lot of information happening in the area and variable message signs, not only in the community in that direct area, but then also further out to provide people with a heads up. There are very, very few raised crosswalks in Baltimore, given that they force cars to stand exactly where they want a legal priority. Why aren't there more to do this more? apologize, I can't talk about specifically about raised crosswalks, but I know that that is going, that is part of the holistic traffic calming treatments that we're looking at, and where it's appropriate at certain areas, we will continue to address them um, to see if there are options and feasible, and then how they can be done. Yeah, the speed tables that at crosswalks. It's an option. It's just, what is the best, most efficient option and the best priority for that area. Does the city office have partners in litter pickup, tree planting, trimmings, flowers? Yes. So for beautification, a lot of the things that you mentioned about litter pickup, tree planting, trimming, and flowers, those are not things that DOT does. So our maintenance workers will go out when they're in the neighborhood and they're doing trimming or just other maintenance. They will clear debris from the roadway itself. And then even sometimes in the median, or definitely in the medians, but sometimes in tree pits and et cetera. So our office does not do tree trimming or plantings. That is through forestry, which is in Brexton Park, just because we don't want to necessarily unintentionally harm any of the trees. So they're the experts, and we will partner with them that when we see something that needs to be trimmed, we will contact them and they will come out and assess and do those things. And then for flowers and tree or either plantings in the median beyond grass, or even in planters we partner with community organizations that will then be responsible for maintenance of the planters or the plantings. And so those are usually a 5, 10, 15-year MOU with them, that they are the vested interest to maintain them. So we will set them up, and then they will be the partners who maintain them moving forward. But if there, as always, the biggest key is for our community folks and if folks may have seen the mayor's Charm City cleanup that's occurring this year, that's been ongoing for, I think, almost 2 months now. I think we're in week 7, week 8 right now. And that's designed to touch every street, every block in the city by city services, be it from DOT, DPW, um, the mayor's neighborhood of community engagement, health, whoever it is, DHCD, whatever it is, to whatever is needed to at least begin to address those issues on those blocks. And so that is kind of a coordinated, comprehensive push to begin to address all areas of the city. How we met with the Edmondson CDC, which is a well-developed concept for a West Baltimore MARC station and related TOD. Perhaps BC can adopt many of their ideas. Again, only having been here for 4 years, I can't say if we've specifically met with the Edmondson CDC. I know that there has been a lot of work about, or there's always a lot of interest about West Baltimore MARC and related TOD. I know that MTA and MDOT are working on TOD concepts across not only within Baltimore City, but across the region. And the West Baltimore MARC station is, owned by MTA. So that really is an MTA asset. So I don't know, maybe perhaps Liz will be able to talk about that a little bit more when she joins us. But the city and BCDOT in specific would be supportive of TOD investment in that area. Turning St. Paul, would we consider turning St. Paul, Calvert, St. Charles Street, Biddle, Preston, two-way to slow them down? A vague suggestion. In the Down to Rise vision, if there was traffic calming approach, would support. I can't make a firm commitment to say that we would support one thing or another. I think the idea of having the concept of looking at it is always an option. And so I know that there is a myriad of suggestions for things as part of the downtown rise and coordinated approach. So I know that that is, and again, and I know that this is, like I said, it's a priority for the Midtown communities, and so uh, yeah, it can be considered. Whether it would be ultimately in implemented, I can't say. Um, yeah, and I know again, yeah, I know this is something that has been studied. I briefly remember my time 10 years ago that it was studied then, or it was discussed then. So that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be reviewed, you know, again. So
Patrick, thank you. I have two sort of final questions
yeah,
for you before we move to our next presentation. The first is, what's the greatest challenge or challenges that Baltimore City Dot faces in terms of the implementation of a very aggressive list of initiatives?
yeah. I think that it's that's a really good question, and it I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's resources. It's the ability to be able to the list of desires outstrips the list of resources.
Right.
So it's really about continuing to be able to um, provide momentum to be able to support the initiatives that we want to do. And that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on continuing is the sustained investment of highway user revenue fees from the state to Baltimore City to be able to allow us to continue to make the needed investments in the infrastructure that exists. The burden that we have, the blessing and the curse that we have within the city is that we're one of the oldest cities in the country, and we have a lot of old infrastructure, and that's something that we have to continue to work on.
And the second is more sort of, a comment for you. And that is Transit Choices really appreciates our partnership with Baltimore City Dot. So please let us know how we may continue to support your efforts, and those of your hardworking team. As you suggested, we will circle back to request a presentation to encompass complete streets, the Greenway project, certainly TSP transit signal prioritization. But with that said, you have been incredibly gracious to step in on behalf of Director Macbeth at such short notice. And for that, we remain very appreciative. So thank you.
Happy to be here. That's why they pay me the moderately big bucks.
Well, we
So, but
look,
yeah, we're more than happy to come back and talk about other initiatives across the city and have other folks here to the real experts that can get into the nitty gritty.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Liz Gordon. Liz is the Assistant Deputy Administrator for Planning and Programming with the Maryland Transit Administration. Her presentation today is the MTA Capital Needs Inventory Update. Liz did a lot of scrambling this morning. She is speaking on behalf of, excuse me, Holly Arnold, MTA Administrator. As you all know, there's been a lot of unfortunate sort of recent incidents regarding cybersecurity that the MTA is dealing with. So hats off to each of we know that you'll find success navigating those kind of new challenges. So Liz, thank you also for stepping in so quickly, to meet with us today. We really appreciate it. And the floor is yours.
Yep, no problem. Happy to do it. I'm going to open with a little bit of transparency and a request. So first, this has been a challenging morning. I'm in Annapolis, as you can see, our beautiful state capital. I had every expectation that I would be able to access a room that MDOT has here in Annapolis. We were unable to do that through the security team. So I'm speaking from outside. So first, a check, is my audio quality tolerable? Or is the
Yes.
background okay? And then the second question is, Robin, are you able to share the presentation? Because I am unfortunately working from my phone.
I will, I also ran into a glitch this morning with respect. Yeah. So technically, I'm going to try again. I did not
Okay.
have success earlier.
Okay.
So why don't you proceed? Ideally, we'd love to have visuals. I'll continue to try, but we will
Okay.
also, at the conclusion, at least by the end of today, I will send the PowerPoint presentation to everyone. But let me work on that for you,
Liz, can you email it to me real quick?
Patrick, I really appreciate that. I believe I can email it to you in just a moment.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that as well.
Yeah, and then I'm happy to share.
Oh, good point. Yeah, Robin, if you're able to email it to Patrick, that may be faster than me poking at my phone while I'm on camera.
Okay.
And if we're able to get that done in the next 2 minutes, I can certainly vamp.
Okay.
And give some introductory information about the subject matter.
I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you both so much. We're all doing our best under challenging circumstances. So, I'm here to speak about the capital needs inventory for MTA. And what the capital needs inventory is it is a document that we are required to produce and update. The previous version was from 2022, and on a 3-year cycle, we update it. What this document does is it uses our asset management data in order to tell us sort of predictively and proactively what are we going to need to invest in and how much is that investment really going to cost. So our asset management program is pretty expansive. It started a little bit before the Federal Transit Administration started requiring transit agencies to have a comprehensive asset management program. We got a little bit of a jump on it. But what it is it's an effort to know every asset that we own, operate, maintain, lease, know where it is, know when it was built, when it was commissioned, when we bought it, know what condition it is in, and to use that information in order to wisely and proactively manage our assets. So we have a lot of them. Assets are everything from our buses and our rail vehicles to our facilities, our tracks, and then a really large category of assets for us is actually our systems. This is a very data intensive business to deliver transit service, and we have a lot of data systems. We have a lot of electrical and power systems, communication systems, and various other things throughout our system. And so what our asset management program does is it aggregates all of the data that we have about those assets, which is gathered from a lot of different sources. Sometimes the only information that we have about an asset is what the manufacturer provides to us. So we buy an asset, we commission it, we put it into service, and we know that it has a useful life of 15 years. And that information is plugged in to our inventory. But for a lot of other types of assets, thank you so much, Patrick. If you just go to this slide, I'll finish my overview of our asset management program and get to what the CNI does. So for others of our assets, we have a much more interactive relationship where our engineering and operations staff really inspect it and update our asset inventory with the real-time information about how that asset is performing. So what we do when we have all that information is we use a model called Term Light, which is an industry standard transit decision-making model for asset management. And it predicts for us how much investment we're going to need to do to keep our assets in a state of good repair. And the capital needs inventory is really the summary and output from a really focused Term Light modeling effort to summarize our investment needs to get and keep our assets in a state of good repair. So next slide. Thank you. So, like, what's the point of using all this asset management data to quantify how much money you need to maintain stuff in a state of good repair? It really allows us to be wise with our investments and to consider our assets not just in terms of the cost to repair them or replace them in the moment, but to really make strategic decisions about our asset investment from a life cycle standpoint. So if we have adequate state of good repair funding in a stable and predictable way, we can develop programs of strategic investments as opposed to emergency repairs, resulting in more efficient investments that really extend the asset life. Next slide. In terms of the findings of the report and its comparison to the 2022 report, the total funding that we have in the 10-year expectation, what we expect we'll have for the next 10 years in terms of funding, has grown since 2022. However, the percentage of the assets in the state of good repair backlog, meaning outside of a state of good repair, has also grown over that same period. But in the short term, the news is very good because the Moore Miller administration has funded over 90% of our state of good repair funding needs in the current CTP period, which is really good. The backlog increase is due to a lot of factors, but things that as we look into this and sort of get business intelligence around it, we think that some key factors are really due to the growth in contractual commitments that we've had in our budget. So things like the Frederick Douglass Tunnel commitment, the Purple Line availability payments, as well as supply chain issues that we know we're still unfolding, and construction inflation and stuff like that, which has slowed the planned state of good repair investment that we had expected in the 2022 report. Next slide. In terms of what are the needs over the next 10 years for our capital state of good repair, they're about 9.9 billion we anticipate. So that does mean that roughly an average of billion a year will have to be invested over the next 10-year period, although those needs aren't a flat line. They're a little lumpy, but we can get into that later. And of that 9.9 billion, about 6.14 billion of that is the needs of the core service area, the Baltimore region. The remainder is the commitments to MARC, the commuter bus needs, the Purple Line availability payments. So this includes our contractual commitments as well as our state of good repair investment needs, but it does not include sort of administrative and staffing costs. Next slide. To just reemphasize, within the CTP period, the final budget, over 90% of our state of good repair needs are funded, and that is really good and allowing us to make good progress. You can sort of see in this chart that green line is showing where the funding is, and then those bars are stacking up the different categories of need that we know and predict. I will note again that the funding need rises in the future years, and this is just due to major categories of assets reaching the end of their useful life. So the need, as you can see, it's a little different in each year. It's a little lumpy, and that's because, if you buy a whole bunch of light rail vehicles all at once, they all reach the end of their useful life at about the same time. So that's part of the dynamic that you're seeing there. I lost the slides. Is that?
Sorry, I don't know what happened. Give me a second.
No problem. Thank you so much for your help. We're all doing the best we can.
I don't know what happened.
Technology is truly so mysterious this week.
Hey, I'm just proud of myself for not being on mute while on a presentation.
We're proud of you for that too, Patrick.
Thanks.
So,
This is where we are now?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I hear a question?
no, I was just trying to bring it up as well, but he's got it.
Sure. Thank you. In terms of some of that good stuff that's in the budget, really notable is the light rail modernization program, which is that over $1 billion of investment in our light rail vehicles, and then also in our power systems, our signal systems, and our maintenance facilities, both in order to be able to operate and maintain those vehicles, and also to be able to upgrade our power systems so we can have more light rail vehicles on a given segment of track at a time, which will help us increase our frequency. We do also have track and station rehabilitations, maintenance of way work, bus and mobility vehicle replacements, um, elevator and escalator rehabilitations, fare collections equipment, and then the exciting railcar project that is at the end of its life cycle as opposed to the beginning is the Metro Railcar and Train Control Replacement Program, which is so soon with new cars entering service, sort of day by day. Next slide. In terms of future priorities, we're really focused on state of good repair. Obviously so. We understand the state of our assets and the need to keep steadily investing in state of good repair. But also, there are visions out there for improving service in the core service area should resources be available. And so some of those top capital investment priorities for the future are, of course, the Red Line. And then the implementation of Be More Bus, which the major capital investment on which that plan hinges is the designing, building, and staffing of a fifth bus division, which would enable a 20 to 25% increase in core bus resources. So, next slide. There are also, in addition to the core service area funded projects, there are a bunch of MARC projects that are funded that are very exciting. There's, of course, station and platform repairs. There's upgrades to the Riverside facility. And then there's the commitment that we've mentioned a couple times to the Frederick Douglass Tunnel project, which is being led by Amtrak. Yeah, next slide. In terms of MARC enhancements that are planned, there's ADA improvements for the Martin State Airport Station. We're also working on the sort of planning and design phases for the Penn Camden connector, the Bayview MARC station, and ADA improvements on the College Park station. We're also, as always, trying to figure out how to improve the bike and MARC relationship with enhancements to that and enhancements to passenger information systems. Next slide. In terms of future priorities, again, the SGR focus is key, but the Penn Camden connector is the next major capital investment that we're kind of teeing up. And then there is in the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan, which is an exciting plan, there are select short-term improvements from that plan that we're trying to work towards advancing. Next slide. SGR projects, they are not small, they are not fast, they can take a long time. So the new Metro Railcars project and the train control system, it will begin service this year. And when all of those cars are in service and all of the old cars are retired and the asset inventory is updated, that right there will reduce our SGR backlog by $400 million. So that's a really monumental investment. There were supply chain disruptions on buses and mobility vehicles during the pandemic. That was a real struggle for us. but we have over the past few years gotten back on track with a regularized replacement program for those vehicles. The I think we've mentioned before that the CTP includes a lot of really important projects. The light rail modernization program just really deserves reiteration. And then, of course, locomotive and rail car maintenance facility upgrades, elevators and escalators, and ongoing track work. Next slide. In summary, again, within the 6-year program, over 90% of our SGR needs are met, and we are working really hard to efficiently and productively spend all of that funding on the assets that really need it. And then we had this in a chart before, but that funding need does rise in future years. Assets get old, they break. Our predictive model says that big tranches of assets are going to go out of a state of good repair. And so the 2031 state of good repair need we estimate is at about 881 million, of which about 553 million is for the core service area. Yeah, next slide. I have seen some questions in the chat. Robin, I will leave it to your judgment whether you'd like to read those off or if you'd like to open it for people to ask questions verbally.
Sure. So Liz, have you concluded your visual presentation?
What's that?
Have you concluded the visual portion?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I was just
Thanks.
going to ask to take that down. Yes, we will move to the chat. And let's see. Okay. Patrick, I'm going to ask for your help again. Can you see the messages in the chat? Would you be able to read them to Liz?
Patrick, you're the only person with working tech.
Which is pretty amazing. I will say that I, up until literally this morning, I have to figure out how to put it on Teams, but my background was backwards for the last few weeks because couldn't figure it out. But I knew my outreach people would be very upset with me if I didn't have it right. So the first question, well, there was one question previously, which you may or may not be able to answer, was about TOD around the West Baltimore MARC station. And is that happening? What's happening with that?
Yeah, so we did receive a TOD grant, a federal TOD strategy grant. And we have been working with your team at DOT and also with BMC to go through the process of getting a team on board to start that work. So I think we're pretty close to being able to kick off that project. And the thought there is that that project can be an opportunity to really collaborate with the West Baltimore United work and with Redline Outreach to add that TOD conversation to the public conversations that are ongoing to get sort of community-led visions for what's needed and wanted from a TOD perspective there.
Okay. The first one that I see is, are there plans to give light rail signal prioritization so it can move faster through downtown?
Yeah, so once again, it's great that question came out of Patrick's mouth, because our teams are working really, really closely together to figure this out in terms of coordinating all of the signal work that the city is already doing to try to figure out operational benefit for both the light rail system and for the traffic grid at large. So it gets pretty granular and pretty technical, and our teams are working on it.
Patrick, I can take over.
Okay, great.
Wow.
All of a sudden, the technology has reappeared. The next question is, I would imagine that a big issue in the backlog and cost category was the disaster with the light rail vehicles, which first received a midlife overhaul for way over 100 million, only then to be discarded for a new cost of $1 billion plus for brand new vehicles and wayside matters. Is there any way to recover some of the failed overhaul cost from the manufacturer who did that?
I haven't been involved in the contractual conversations, so I wouldn't dream of stepping into legal's lane. But I will say that midlife overhauls, typically in asset management terms, are not meant to extend the useful life of the vehicle. They're meant to meet the useful life of the vehicle. And while that was a really bad and unfortunate situation, we are at this point up against the expected useful life of those vehicles. So it really is important at this time to replace them with an industry standard sort of modern vehicle. And as I said, as we are making the changes to the system to allow that, there are a lot of kind of associated benefits in terms of being able to run more frequency due to the power system upgrade and that sort of thing.
Next question, what exactly is the delineation between capital cost and state of good repair operating cost?
Capital cost versus state of good repair operating cost. So our operating budget certainly goes to some maintenance activities. You know, it pays for maintenance staffing and some sort of day-to-day O&M maintenance activities. But there does come a point where we would begin to think of some activities as capital maintenance, where we're really we're making big capital purchases and we're replacing assets. And while our operating budget may support some of the staff time that goes to that work, we would think of those as capital projects for for maintaining our assets in a state of good repair. So I hope that answers the question.
Next question is, what is the status of the Metro Rail car replacement project and what related improvements are planned?
It is coming along. It is approaching its conclusion. So those new rail cars will go into service this year, is our anticipation. And the major upgrade coming along with that project is really to the communications and train control system. So it's a major operational and safety upgrade.
The next is a compliment and then a question. Great teamwork on that presentation.
Thank you. We are demonstrating in real time the close partnership between MTA and Baltimore City DOT.
It's a beautiful thing. I assume resiliency or infrastructure hardening needs increase the cost of SGR. Can you speak a bit about how MTA's resiliency planning interacts with SGR efforts?
Yeah, they certainly can, right? They can increase the cost of SGR efforts, or they can influence the scope. So we do have a resiliency team that does a lot of mapping and predicting and looking at weather impacts or predicted inundation or any number of hazards that we might expect in the future for our assets. And one way to think about responding to that would be, okay, well, let's put the asset back exactly how it is today, but let's make it, tougher and beefier and more expensive. And another way to think about it is, are there other options, other strategies, another location, a change to how we design it? And sometimes those have a higher net cost than just sort of plug and chug replacing in kind, but sometimes they don't. And I think the key to that is just that idea that I touched on early in the presentation, which is like adequate and predictable SGR funding over time allows us to be strategic in that way, to really know what's coming down the pike and not be reactive and be strategic. And one of the things that it allows us to do is to take into account things like that in our project development process.
And the last question is, what is the estimated timeline for light rail transit signal priority?
For light rail transit signal priority specifically. So it does have transit signal priority at this time already, but we understand that the operations through downtown are still challenging. And so while it's not an implementation of TSP, which is already there, the conversations are ongoing in terms of any operational changes we could make. I can't give a firm timeline because that's a collaborative effort with DOT, but we are working on it actively and hopefully expeditiously.
Well, thank you, Liz. I mean, we recognize the importance of the CNI, particularly as it, prioritizes investments and secures the nexus ending funding to ensure, both long-term stability and functionality. So really appreciate all of the hard work that goes into that.
It's a big data effort, and it's some of our best business intelligence about what we can really expect out of our $14 billion worth of assets, which as soon as you put them in the field and start operating them, TikTok.
Right.
And so having that information is very helpful and important to our engineering teams, our maintenance teams, et cetera.
Well, thank you very much. And hopefully you can take a breath and, the rest of your day will run smoothly.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Of course. Jimmy,
Yeah.
good morning.
I'm
Would you
here.
like Jimmy Rose?
Hi, Jimmy.
I'm here.
Jimmy Rose, Transit Choices co-founder. I'd like to invite to provide the closing remarks, if you will.
Yeah, first of all, thank Liz and Patrick for stepping in for their directors at the last minute for different reasons. But we really appreciate your stepping in and doing the presentations today. Secondly, we want to thank the audience, people who are asking all the questions. It is your contribution and interest that enables us to attract these top line presenters and to have this dialogue, which is so helpful to improve transit in Baltimore and to keep the interest and the pressure on these agencies to improve our transit system. Ultimately, what Liz was talking about was basically maintaining what we have in the best possible state of repair, which is great and which does improve the transit system. But it's not enough. We got to be making more improvements than that. And we got to find the funding to do that. And that's what Transit Choice's main thrust is right now, is to develop a dedicated revenue stream so that we can improve the transit system beyond the state of good repair and add to it in ways that are substantive and make the experience of mass transit in our region better. And so we can compete with all the other cities that have good transit, really is what it comes down to, in attracting investment and creating jobs. If we don't have a good transit system, we're not going to be able to compete. So that's the important thrust of what Transit Choices is doing. But thank you, the presenters and the audience, for participating in this process. And we're very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I'd like to announce our upcoming meeting is just a few weeks away. It is scheduled for Thursday, September 11th. We have two more great presentations to bring to you. The first is with the president and CEO with the Fund for Educational Excellence, Roger Schulman. He'll be talking about a letter he wrote to Governor Moore, really, supporting and advocating for funding for Be More Bus as it relates to getting our students to school on time. The second presentation will be from our council president, Zeke Cohen, and he's going to be talking with us about his many initiatives and plans within the transportation arena. On a sad note, I'm sure that many of you know, some may not have heard, that Samuel Jordan, who really was the voice for the Baltimore Red Line, passed away very sadly on August 1st of this year. We worked closely with Sam to advance the Red Line project. He was a fierce and tireless advocate for the project, and he will be dearly missed. So we wish each of you a wonderful day. As Jimmy mentioned, we so appreciate your time and your participation in these meetings. It makes all of the hard work worth it. So take care. We hope to see you soon. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.